And for reaction to today's grand jury decision to not charge any of these officers with Breonna Taylor's death, we bring in Frederick Moore, the attorney for Breonna's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now, we learned today that the only charges against a former officer are for endangering Breonna Taylor's neighbors. Your client was right there with Breonna when she was killed. He saw it all. What's he saying tonight?
Well, it's tough to process. Kenneth has already gone through so much. He held his girlfriend, the love of his life, in his arms as she died. Didn't know what was going on that night. If you haven't heard the 911 call, you probably will over the next couple days. It was incredibly traumatic for him. And then on top of that, they arrested and charged him, even though he's protected and immune under Kentucky law. And, to get out, to hear all these pleas for justice, and to hear General Cameron mention Breonna Taylor's name in his speech at the RNC, and to get on TV today and essentially blame Kenneth for her murder. I mean, you can imagine what he's going through.
We can imagine, begin to imagine possibly. The Kentucky Attorney General said today that the shots fired at Breonna Taylor were legally justified because your client, Kenneth Walker, fired first. You disagree with that. Why?
Well, Kenneth is entitled to self-protection under KRS 503085, right? He was standing his ground. The proof, based on what we know, and what General Cameron knows as well, is that someone was beating on the door. Kenneth and Breonna yelled, "Who is it?" They didn't know who it was. Kenny grabbed his lawful weapon and shot one time. Right now in Kentucky, people are entitled to self-protection. One, Kenny is protected under the Castle Doctrine and standing your ground rules are the law. The officers, however, when you're using self-protection, it has to be reasonable, right? You can't, in response to someone punching you, shoot them up with an AR-15, or in response to someone shooting you, shoot up the entire room. That's not the way the law works. So I'm a little confused as to how Daniel Cameron feels that the officer's actions were justified when Kenneth fired one shot in self-protection because he thought that an intruder was entering his apartment. They responded by firing over 30 shots. How is that reasonable? We know, based on what witnesses have said, that the officers' clips emptied and they yelled, "Reload." After one shot from Kenneth, there's no way that it's justifiable. So I completely reject whatever he said during his press conference.
And state prosecutors also announced today that their investigation of Breonna's killing has now been completed. What do you make of that, particularly when there's still unresolved factual issues like whether the police actually did, in fact, knock before breaking into Breonna's home?
I think that Daniel has adopted the, unfortunately, a narrative that the police department has tried to perpetuate since this has happened. There are a number of ways you can get to, I believe, wanton murder in this case, but at the very least, manslaughter in the second degree. Executing a warrant is an inherently dangerous thing, right? That's why that's why SWAT is usually used, and SWAT uses a speaker that people can hear from several hundred feet away. They've done it in different cities. They do it here in Louisville when they're saying that people protesting are in violation of the city ordinance, right, or violating curfew. They do it because they want to project to people. They want to make sure that people hear. In this case, they didn't use SWAT, right? So there were no body cams there to confirm that the officers account of the story that they did in fact not. So if it's 1 o'clock in the morning or almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and you hear someone beating on your door, by the way, 12 of the neighbors also didn't hear the officers announce themselves. Isn't it reasonable for you to grab your gun and once the door comes off the hinges, shoot once? So the story that he presented today to the public was half of the truth, if that. He said that the officers' account, the people that were actually and being investigated currently for potential homicide, said that they announced themselves. Well, duh, of course they did. Secondly, He said that it was corroborated by one witness. Well, that one witness only said that after the third time he had been interviewed. The first two, he said he didn't hear anything. There's a language barrier there. And he was outside the apartment. He was outside 2 floors above. That's the only witness that said that he had heard them announce themselves. So I don't know what to say about how he reached his decision. To me, it is baffling. I cannot believe what happened today, but we're going to go get justice our way.
What does that mean by get justice your way?
So we've obviously, if you're not aware, we filed a complaint. We're seeking a deck action, right? So first, we're asking that the court find Kenny immune from any further prosecution, right? Because to this day, charges are dismissed without prejudice. They could be brought back, he could be re-indicted. Secondly, and related to that, the tone of General Cameron's press conference today, he essentially blamed Kenny for what happened. So that makes even, number one, more important. Secondly, we're, in addition to what Sam and Juanita and Mr. Trump did with changing the behavior of the police department with some of their reforms that they got as a result of their civil litigation, we've also filed a complaint for false arrest, general negligence, battery, assault, and that they violated Kenny's private right of action with respect to the stand your ground law. So we are going to hold their feet to the fire and show in court at trial that their execution of the warrant was grossly negligent. And we're also going to show that after that, they arrested and charged Kenny as part of the cover-up for their negligence.
Frederick Moore, we thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.